It's Tuesday again, and it's another episode of Crazy Chris's Sports Rants. We got a lot to go over because the NHL trade deadline was on Monday, and there was a lot of moves that was going on. We're just gonna, towards the end of this, we're just gonna talk about some of the bigger trades. If I don't say that a place acquired. If they just acquired a player, but I don't say anything else, it's probably because they just got draft picks in response to the players. So just know that they got draft picks. It was really hard to try to keep up with where everybody was going. So we just try to hit on the big ones and go from there. So, but we will start off with wrestling. Tuesday night on Impact, Eddie Edwards won against Michael Elgin in that best of 5 series, so it's 2-1 now, but still Elgin still has the lead on that. Not too much else to go on there. AEW, the Young Bucks win the tag team battle royal at the beginning of the show, and they're the number one contenders for the tag titles. Meanwhile, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, they defended those same titles against the Lucha Brothers. So that will set up the Young Bucks against Hangman and Kenny Omega. I'm thinking they're going to turn Hangman into a heel, and him and Omega will probably lose the titles, or there will probably be some kind of big storyline blow up that will probably go a couple different directions. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, or how they choose to go about that. Let's see. Cody Rhodes beats Wardlow with a dive off the top of a steel cage. As I understand, this is the first steel cage match they'd ever had in AEW. This is an ongoing thing between Cody and the gentleman he's supposed to face at the pay-per-view, MJF. This is MJF's bodyguard. And Cody's had to go through some stipulations to be able to face MJF for... I think it was a few months back. MJF actually gypped Cody Rhodes out of the World Heavyweight Championship, and that's why we have this revolving storyline that's been going on for a few weeks now. So hopefully they'll be done with this storyline soon, and we can go a different direction with either of these two characters, or maybe all three of them. So we'll see how that pans out. In NXT, Devlin, who was the Cruiserweight Champion, defended against Lio Rush. There wasn't a whole lot happening on wrestling, and I think the reason why is because there are going to be pay-per-views coming up shortly. Probably this weekend. I know WWE has one on Thursday night, I think. That's the Super Showdown, and then I do believe AEW has got one coming up maybe on Saturday or Sunday night. I'm not real sure on that one. So like some of the shows not really building a whole lot, not really doing a whole lot, and it's one of those things where there's just not a whole lot of movement or anything. So of course, like I said, we'll get to Raw and SmackDown later. I'll already go ahead and tell you there was really nothing of note on Raw other than just advanced storylines. The matches were what we've seen before. Nothing really stood out, nothing really different, nothing really spectacular or anything of that nature. So it's just to move stuff along in anticipation of Thursday's pay-per-view. So, but we'll go into the sports part of it now. And the NFL owners have approved new CBA terms. They're trying to talk to the players, and players are talking now to try to... The owners are actually trying to push a 17-game schedule for the new agreement. Also, they are thinking of expanding the playoff to 7 teams per side. I understand why, but I don't really understand why, because that's kind of, that's 14 teams out of 32 that will be going to the playoffs, and a lot of times in some of these sports, the more teams you have going to the playoffs, you might as well not even have a regular season unless it's just for seeding. I don't know why these places do that. Like, I understand in basketball and college basketball, I understand why you have the 64 team tournament and why you even have 68 teams, because there's more than 100 in some schools competing. But at the same point, we need to kind of let's leave the playoffs where they are at in each of these sports. Let's leave them where they are, because sooner or later you get all these teams, and the bad thing is that everybody's my team got left out, my team got left out, my team got left out. Somebody's always going to get left out, but mathematically, the way it is most of the time, it works. The way it is most of the time, it works. And people always just want to complain because, your team in football is 7-9 or is 8-8 or something like that, and you don't make the playoffs. Well, you should have done better. I've been in a situation where, maybe one of my teams, didn't make the playoffs because of a record. Well, my team should have done better. Am I happy about that they didn't make it? No, I'm not happy about it. But, at the same point, I'm not happy if they didn't make it, but at the same point, you should have done better. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And, in the NFL, there's not a whole lot of teams that are, how can I say that? Not really talented enough to quite make it. We won't go through that list because that's just something that's for, another time. But there's no reason really to list, because in the league it's the have and the have-nots. I mean, you look through some of the divisions, and some of the divisions are, for instance, we'll say the AFC East. The AFC East, prime example. Yeah, Buffalo's coming up, but New England's been the leader of that division for a long time. And, Miami and New York Jets, they're spinning their wheels. And no disrespect to Miami or New York Jet fans, but you're just sitting there spinning your wheels. You're just spinning your wheels. Then you have other divisions like the AFC North, the AFC South, where you really don't know who's going to come out. You suspect, like the AFC North, you suspect the Steelers and the Ravens. But you never know when the Browns or the Bengals may make a move. Same thing with the South. You expect Tennessee to be pretty good and Houston to be pretty good. There's been times when Jacksonville's come up there and Indy's come up there. I mean, and it's the same thing with the NFC too. We all thought the Rams would come out of the West this year, and they didn't even make it. You get Seattle and San Francisco, and the Saints, come out of the South, but there's really nobody else in the South. I won't say there's nobody else in the South for competition, but you just never know what's going to happen with teams like Atlanta and Carolina. You never know what you're going to get from week to week. And it's just one of those things. You expect, in the North, for Green Bay and Minnesota to be the best. Sometimes the Bears make it. Sometimes they don't. And I know I didn't talk about the AFC West or the NFC East. The AFC West is pretty much kind of clearly defined. That is Kansas City's division. The other teams may get good here before too long. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. I have to see what happens in the offseason. And the NFC East is, gosh, that was a mess this year. you figure Dallas and Philly's going to make it, but then whenever they get in there, they just choke. And my team doesn't do very well either. Washington, we don't do good either, and but it like I said, it's just a case of the have and the have-nots in there. Let's just keep the 12 teams that we got and just roll with it. It's worked for 100 years. Let's keep going with it. That's all I'm saying. Let's just keep going with it. Speaking of the Redskins, they released Jordan Reed. They've now released Reed. Vernon Davis has retired. The draft will come up. I don't know what Washington's going to pick because they need a lot. They need a quarterback. They need a tight end. They need some wide receivers. And they need help, and they need help fast if they want to challenge for the division, because it looks like we're rebuilding, and we've already been rebuilding for the last 5 years. Pieces should already be in place to at least challenge for the division, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. Kyrie Irving is out for the season. He come back and suffered another injury, and he's just going to be out for the rest of the year in basketball. Just that flip-flop thing, and he's injured for the rest of the season. North Carolina State beat Duke in college basketball. They beat them 88-66. That's kind of a weird thing because usually Duke's one of the better teams. And I like Duke, but teams get beat. Teams get beat. Sometimes by unranked teams, sometimes by ranked teams. It's kind of shocking to see Duke lose, but at the same point, it is a possibility. And as I've seen so far this year in college basketball, anything can and will happen. I've seen teams take losses to teams that they should have beaten. And so I don't really know who to tell you who's the clear favorite coming into the tournament that's going to be starting, should be next month, sometime next month. And so I can't tell you who's a clear favorite because the number one teams keep getting knocked off their perch. And there's really nobody that's really super strong that can't be beat and that hasn't taken a loss. So we'll have to see how that goes in the weeks and see who comes out of that. On SmackDown, Naomi wins the number one contender for the women's title by beating Carmella in a one-on-one match. Goldberg speared Bray Wyatt, who was the Fiend. That's really all that happened on that. Fiend showed up out of nowhere, trying to play mind games with Goldberg. Goldberg just puts him on the ground. They're making Goldberg look really good for a matchup that he's probably already billed to lose at the pay-per-view. So that they can make way for WrestleMania. I'm not saying he will, but it just kind of looks that way. I wasn't going to add this in there because I really didn't know too much about it, but Tyson Fury, I guess, won the Boxing World Heavyweight Championship, or one of them, over, I think his name is Deontay Wilder. And Wilder, I found out earlier today that Wilder had said it was a 7th round TKO. Wilder had came to the ring wearing some sort of garment that they say was approximately 40 pounds to the ring for Black History Month. And I'm not really sure what the garment was, so I can't say exactly what happened. Wilder's now saying that because of the garment was so heavy, he never got his legs underneath him during the fight, and that's why he lost. I, like probably most of the people in the world, you lost because you got beat. You didn't lose because you wore 40 pounds worth of gear to the ring that you took off. You lost because you got beat. That's what happened. I'm not saying anything bad about the Garmin or anything because I didn't see it, but you lost because you just got beat. It's like when people complain about the referees and things. No, you lost because you just got beat. That's all there is to it. Kansas beats number 1 Baylor. Kansas is number 3 at the time, beating number 1 Baylor 64-61. It was a close game. Really kind of shows that these two teams may meet a little bit later on down the road. They're pretty good matchups right now as it stands. Looks like, so we may see more of that in the future. The offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, which is Eric Bieniemy, he's going to stay at Kansas City. He's going to stay there, so that's good news for the Chiefs. Now we're going to go into hockey. Vegas gets Robin Lehner for Malcolm Subban, and Chicago gets Malcolm Subban from Vegas. Subban he was in Vegas for a while as a backup goalie. Started quite a bit too, and Lehner was, I believe, in Buffalo before he got sent to Chicago. He wasn't in Chicago for very long, but it gives Vegas it's basically a trade for a trade on goalies, and it gives both teams pretty good goaltenders, whether they use them in backup or as a starter. So it gives them both pretty good goaltenders. Carolina trades Jani Kukkonen, I guess is how you say that, to the Rangers for Sami Vatanen. I think Carolina gets the better end of this deal because they get Vatanen, who's a little bit better of a player. The Pens acquire Connor Sheary from Buffalo. Edmonton acquires Tyler Ennis from the Senators. Both Sheary to the Pens is a good move, and Ennis to Edmonton is a good move for Edmonton. I think the Senators they were involved in a lot of trades. I think they're trying to remove cap space and get a lot of draft picks so that they can make some draft picks so that they can maybe get some younger players. Try to eliminate a lot of cap space and try to get that franchise on the right road. Like I said, the Pens getting Sheary from Buffalo. Buffalo's still pretty good to this point. Even with the people they still have, they do need some pieces, but they are better than what they were. Let's see. Red Wings get Sam Gagner from the Oilers. This one's kind of a head scratcher. Gagner's getting a little bit older. If nothing else, it gives the Red Wings a little bit of a veteran player, and they're one of the worst teams in the league right now. So maybe they're hoping some veteran leadership will help the younger guys come along, and maybe Gagner can teach them some things. Gagner's been around the league for a long time. He's a pretty good player. Like I said, maybe they're looking for leadership in this. The Bruins acquire Nick Ritchie from the Ducks. The Ducks were another team that got rid of a lot of well-known players and got draft picks. And the Ducks, again, just like the Senators, kind of one of the worst teams in the league, kind of lower, not really the worst team, but kind of one of the teams that is worse. And they've gotten rid of most players, but they have picked up a lot of draft picks. And like I said, hopefully, like the Senators, hopefully both of those teams will use those draft picks and get them get them some pieces to make them kind of contenders. At least for the playoffs. Not to win the cup, but at least for the playoffs. At least doing something. Buffalo acquires Wayne Simmons from the Devils. I'm not really sure who gets the better end of this deal because Wayne Simmons is getting older. Moderately good player. Would have been okay with either team. So we'll see how that pans out for them. Penguins acquire Patrick Marleau from the Sharks. I'm kind of excited about this one. Of course, I'm wearing my Penguin shirt because they were first over the weekend. They lose to Washington the other night, and they're back in second. But they are right behind Washington for the Metro. So having Marleau's a little bit of an older player. He's been to a couple of different teams. I think Marleau and guys that are on the Sharks like Joe Thornton, some of these guys that are getting older, they're trying to do what some of these other Hall of Famers have did. They're trying to go to other teams and hope that they can help those other teams to win a cup, because some of these guys are going to be Hall of Famers, but they've never won a cup. And you hate to see it in any sport because, like, it happens in football, it happens in basketball. You get these really good players. Like in football, for instance, you have Dan Marino, Warren Moon, guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Barry Sanders never won a championship. And it's not their fault, it's just, there's this power team at this time, that power team at that time. Guys like in the NBA, like Charles Barkley, Karl Malone and John Stockton, Patrick Ewing, and John Stark. There's just a lot of these guys that are really good players, and they're in the Hall of Fame. Never won a title in their respective league, and it's kind of bad. But we know that these guys are good players. They are household names. And we do know them. It's just sad that they didn't win a title. Good players deserve a title, and sometimes it just don't happen. So we'll see how the Marleau thing works out. Carolina acquires Vincent Trocheck from the Panthers for Erik Haula. This is a weird trade. Erik Haula was playing for Vegas for a while there. Went to Florida. He never really turned into what they thought he was going to. And Vincent Trocheck never really quite turned into what they thought he was going to be either. So we'll see what happens on that. The Islanders acquire Jean-Gabriel, I hope I'm saying this right, Pageau, from the Senators. And this was a big trade with a couple of different teams, but the main parts of it is that he went to the Islanders. The Avs acquired Vladislav Namestnikov. Oh my. From Senators as well. And the Senators got draft picks and some other lesser named players for compensation for two guys whose names I had a lot of trouble saying, and really shouldn't have, because I've heard the names before. So, but we'll see how those guys work out with the Islanders. The Islanders have needed some help in a while, and the Avalanche have more weapons now to join Nate McKinnon. So it'll be interesting to see how if this helps the Avs. Surely probably won't hurt them. Like I said, anything else it'll help them. They're a pretty good team as it stands right now. I mean, they're decent right now. They're pretty good. So we'll see if that what that does. The Oilers get Mike Green from Detroit for Kyle Brodziak. think Detroit gets the better end of this deal with Brodziak, or Brodziak, or however you want to say it, whichever part of it that you're from. That's what you say. The Caps acquire Ilya Kovalchuk from the Canadiens. This is weird. Kovalchuk had been in the league for a long time. He never quite got to the level that everybody thought he would. He went and he played in some other leagues around the world, and he's been in and out of the NHL for about the last 7, 8, maybe longer years. And the Capitals are going to bring him in. The only problem I see is that they're probably bringing him in for scoring and for helping the offense. I don't know if he can provide that because, like I said before, we've seen people try to bring him in, and he does not meet expectations. Can he do it where he's at in Washington? I don't think so, because Washington's offense is pretty good. I don't know really where Kovalchuk's going to fit in on this unless somebody gets injured or something like that. So I'm really not sure why the Capitals are going to take a chance with this. I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of underlying thing. Maybe they're going to trade him to somebody else for something else. I'm not real sure where they're going with that because, like I said, they've got enough offense and defense that they shouldn't need him. So I'm not real sure why we do that. The Jets acquired Cody Eakin from Vegas. Eakin's pretty decent player, and the Jets need a couple extra pieces. Bruins acquire Andrej Case from the Ducks. I probably just said that wrong. For David Backes and Axel Anderson. I'm thinking the Ducks got the better end of this deal with David Backes and Axel Anderson. They have been in Boston for a while. They are moderately good players, and to have them both instead of just one or the other, that's a pretty good deal. Case, he's not a bad player, but he's just kind of middle of the road player, which the Bruins don't really need too much anyway. I mean, they can score and defend, so they do pretty well with both of that, so they don't have to worry too much. The Rangers acquire Jean-Franc Berube from the Flyers. Berube's still a good player to this point, so he'll help the Rangers. The Canucks acquired Tyler Toffoli from the Kings. He should make an immediate impact on the Canucks, both offensively and defensively. He's a younger guy. He plays very, very well for a younger guy, and he should help tremendously on this team. The Islanders acquire Andy Green from the Devils for David Quenneville. I know the names. I just don't know whether either of these players. I'd say they're the middle of the road players, and you're just trading one out for another one, unless you're going on contracts, which it might be what it is. The Penguins also acquired Jason Zucker from the Wild for Alex Galchenyuk. I don't really know how to say it. But anyway, I was kind of scratching my head that they got rid of Alex. But I'm told that this Zucker kid is good as well. So we'll have to see that. Anything right now would help the Wild. They are down to the point to where they are they're pretty bad at the moment. They're not the worst team in the league, but they are pretty bad. They are not consistent. You never know what you're going to see from them, so we'll see how that works. And Joey Logano wins the Pennzoil 400 at Vegas, the second race. Newman is out of the hospital. He's been out of the hospital for about a week now, and he seems to be doing well. Of course, he's going to have some head injuries. That's to be expected with that nasty crash. Racing just kind of resumed as normal on this one. Nothing really to speak of that happened there that was crazy. I mean, the Vegas Motor Speedway, nothing really to say. I've been asked to do some stuff, well, maybe to try to do some stuff with the XFL. If it lasts more than a season, or if something tremendously great happens or something, we might go that route. But for right now, I'm just kind of standing by and watching stuff happen. I haven't really watched any games. I've watched a little bit of action from it, but I don't know. It just doesn't really catch my eye. Friday Night Fisticuffs for this week. We're going to got a 2-game setup that is it's a Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of a side-scrolling beat 'em up hack and slash. The first one is going to be Tower of Doom. Tried it out again the other night just to get back into the game, and it took me about an hour to get through the game. So it's probably going to be the Tower of Doom one is probably going to be this Friday, and then next Friday is probably going to be Shadows over Mystaria. There are many different paths to go in both games. I'm just going to go just one path, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go one path. We're just going to choose which way to go, because if I went the other paths, that would be something that would be, it would take probably a couple weeks to get done with that. Also going to try to start getting back into Final Fantasy 1 on the playthrough of that. Have gotten off of that for a few weeks, and just haven't got right back into it. Been playing some other games and trying out some other stuff, and really kind of need to do that on the evenings. Had 2 crystals of the 4 that were on the game. There's still quite a bit of game left. The Golden Axe one, the first Golden Axe game that I was playing the other night, if anybody's seen any of that, I don't know that you can kill those skeletons at the end with that boss. I think you just have to go after the boss. And if you watch the second Golden Axe that I played through it, I did go after the boss at the end of the game instead of the skeletons. I mean, I did knock them around, but I did go after the boss. Once the boss died, then the skeleton died. I probably should have done that on the first one. That being said, at the end of the first one, you're not missing much on the ending. It just shows the cast of the characters, and then the little dwarf guy is throwing a rock of jumbled letters at one of the enemies, and he just keeps batting it, and it does the credits. Like I said on the post, the original arcade game ends after I think it's the 6th stage, where the king and queen are lowered and you're standing in front of the door. That's where the original arcade game ends. Sega added 2 extra stages inside the castle. So when now on the arcade original, when it ends, there are kids in front of the machine. They're playing Golden Axe, and then like the bad guys start coming out. They start running. Bad guys running after them. The good guys come out. The good guys are running after them. And that's kind of where it ends. Both endings are pretty bleh, but we expect from that era, you know. They're just, you know, and hardly anybody read like staff credits and stuff anyway, because you couldn't really read some of the names to begin with. So, you know, but it is what it is. You know, some developers put stuff in their endings, some of them didn't. So, but we'll be back next week with more of things. See if anything else happens or anything like that, and see if we get more to talk about on different stuff. And we'll see you next week.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left.